Hello, this is Tatiana with Truthball in Search of Goof. And, excuse me, just check my settings there. Okay, this is going under the Goofball Chronicles, where I vent and complain and work out whatever it is, whatever goofy thing I've just recently done. Okay, so, do I have to say anything else, just in case, if this is your first video of mine that you're seeing, I want to say I'm not a doctor, and this is part of this whole channel, this YouTube channel is part of my coping strategy, and my hope is to validate others who have been through abusive relationships, narcissistic relationships, and to encourage you on getting healthy and making a plan to get out if you haven't gotten out of that relationship yet. Okay. I am totally winging it here because, like, literally this just happened like less than half an hour ago. But I am ashamed at my own behavior. And even though this is going to be about church, I don't think it's going to be very religious. We'll see what happens because I'm venting, babies. Okay, because I made a mistake today. And I'm not proud of my behavior. And furthermore, I am like, need to work on my instant boundary responses, dang it all. Okay, so check it out. So I went to church, and I have my membership at one church. It's a larger church. And so this is part of the same, what would you call it then? Part of the same anyway, I was at another church, much smaller, very, very rural church. Like, I think the max amount is like 30 people. Anywho, so I went to the church today, this tiny little church, and I'm already kind of praying about it, like, Lord, I don't really know if I want to go to this church. Like, just this particular denomination. But nevertheless, Lord, let's do it. If you want me to go, you'll show me. So I'm sitting down, and the sermon was about about Adam and Eve and a new beginning. And so I thought, maybe this will be good. And we read this verse about, we were reading the verse out loud. It started off with, that, God gave his only son, that whosoever believes in him will be saved, blah, blah, blah. Okay, not to be disrespectful about the verse. I'm just trying to get my story across. Because like I said, my channel is not a religious channel, even though I have my own religious beliefs. But check it out, because this is a boundary issue. This is a boundary issue. So, right across, I'm on one pew, and right across from me is this dude that I recognize. And if you haven't seen my other videos, like I've said, I'm back in a community that I used to live in many years ago. And upon returning, I've had quite a few people completely not recognize me. And so this guy doesn't recognize me, but he's still wearing the same exact clothing he used to wear 10 years ago at my other church. I know who he is. I don't remember his name, but he's like a creeper. And so I'm just kind of like sitting there praying like, I just hate this guy. Lord, you might love him, but I don't like him. Sure enough, as soon as the sermon is over, I'm leaving. People are staying. They're having a lunch together, and I had left my food, but I don't want to stay. I have other things to do, which was not doing a video. I still got other stuff to do, but I have to get this out because I feel super icky inside. So I don't have anything, I can't tell you anything specific. I'm just saying that I don't like the guy. I have observed him for years. We attended the same church for years. He does not recognize me as I'm leaving this other church that we both seem to be at. Okay. And then he says to me, and he starts explaining that he needs a jump for his car. And I'm thinking, how do I want to put this? He doesn't recognize me. He thinks I'm a stranger. And I'm thinking, so you're asking me to have a stranger get in my car so I can take you to go jump your car. But nevertheless, I actually do know him. So I'm like, and we're standing there with all people. It's at the doorway. It's in the doorway. Chaos. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Okay, here we go. Here come those boundaries. Like, okay, if you're not religious, it's like, am I a good girl? I should be a good girl, and help jump this guy's car, And he's telling me, I have jumper cables. I just need a car. And I did initially hold on to my boundary, and I just kind of looked around thinking there's so many men around. This is really weird. And I just thought, you're just such a creeper, What game is he playing? What game is he playing? So, and I'm thinking, okay, well, everybody's watching. I know that everybody at this church knows who he is, and they are seeing me, except that I'm going to give him a jump. So I feel generally safe. But nevertheless, I still said, isn't there anyone else who can jump your car? And then he says, oh, but you're leaving. And I'm like, dang it. Okay. So we go over to my car, and I tell him he can get in the back seat. I have my stuff is in the front seat, and I'm making some excuse about it. He can sit in the back seat. Plus, in between my driver's seat and my passenger seat, there's the, what do you call it, that console thing in the middle where you put your coffee cup. So anyway, I keep that open all the time, and I have a big ass knife right there that I can grab like this. I drive around with that big ass knife in my car right there. So I was like, yeah, in my back seat, I can fucking stab you in your heart. That's how Christian I am. I'm going to help him jumpstart his car. But if he does anything, I will stab him in the fucking chest. Yeah. Anyway. It's going through my mind the whole time. And thankfully, he described where he is. I know where he's saying his vehicle is. It's like 2.5 blocks away. And I'm just going in my head like, I don't like this. I don't want him in my car. Why am I giving into this social pressure? And this is what I want to describe is why I feel icky, why I want to talk about boundaries. Because those of us who have been abused as children, when we were not raised to have confidence, something else was abusive or neglectful in our lives, so that predator is able to use 100% of the times of all of the stories I've heard of children being abused, they use a social dynamic, a social structure in order to convince you that it's okay to do something, right? We've all heard the stories like, come to my van, I have a puppy. Come over to my car, I have candy. And we're supposed to consider, grown-ups are in charge, and grown-ups are, who we go to for safety. Whatever that social construct is that makes us override our icky feeling, okay? And this is something I have worked on. I'm 43 now. Abused as a child, sexually abused as a child by a family friend who used a social construct. Your father is going to be angry at you if you don't do what I'm asking you to do. Your father will be angry at you, which is what worked for me. I'm a good girl. I'm a good girl, and I do not want my daddy mad at me. Same thing. I'm trying to show you the same thought process still happened at the church today. I'm a good girl. Here's a person in need. I want my daddy happy with me, my daddy in heaven, right? Someone's in need. I can jump. Not only can I jump his rig, but I actually have a jumper. I forget what it's called, but this kit thing that you can jump a vehicle. So, do you see what I'm saying? I overrode my icky feeling because of a social construct. And I'm not proud of that. I'm not. And it's actually really kind of funny that the sermon today was about Adam and Eve hiding from God. And she was talking about shame. And then she was talking about the shame that we feel with parents and the shame that we feel with God. And I was listening to that thinking, I don't feel shame ever with God. I don't try to hide from God. I believe that God sees everything that I do and knows my thoughts and why I do things, etc. I don't have a problem with apologizing to God. If I feel like I've done something wrong, I don't feel shame. I wake up feeling forgiven. So anyway, so the moment that I got done with this dude and I'm trying to figure out, like, what is this icky feeling? What am I going to do about it? Where did I go wrong? Blah, blah, blah. I thought, I feel ashamed. I don't feel ashamed to God, but I feel ashamed to myself because I do work so hard to not be taken advantage of or for people to cross my boundary line. And I allowed someone to cross my boundary line. And replaying it afterwards, I'm thinking, okay, well, initially I did say, isn't there someone else who could jump your car? And I needed to give myself permission to take it to the next step and not feel like God was going to hate me if I didn't jump this guy's car. He already said that he has jumper cables. So any single person in this parking lot can jump his vehicle, and it is more socially appropriate for him to ask a man. It is more socially appropriate for him to not ask a woman by herself. And furthermore, he's asking a woman by herself that he thinks is a guest. He doesn't know I'm a church member. He thinks I'm a guest. And you don't do that to a church guest, someone who just came to check out your church for the first time. You come and say, hey, can you give me a jump? This person is looking for your help, not to take you to your car. And in my opinion, honeys, and I know I'm opinionated, but honeys, I know that guy. And he's been going to this church for over 10 years. And in 10 years, if you still don't have a car that's running, you are not worshiping the right God. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? I know it's coming out blunt, but I'm replaying the whole scenario and just thinking, how dare you do that to a guest? This is my church that I have attended. And this is what you are doing to our guests? To convey to them, hey, attend this church. You could have a car that doesn't work. And I have to ask strangers for a ride. Why is he not blessed? Because he's a creeper. I'm spitting, I'm so upset. He is a creeper. Anyway, like I said, I drove him to his vehicle and I parked like he was not listening to a word that I said. In my mind, I thought, he is just targeting me in any way that he can. He thinks I'm a guest. He's going to try to get individualized time with me. I don't know if the car's running or not. I don't know if he's telling the truth. I don't know what the game is. But as we drive up to the vehicle, he is parked askew like he had pulled over. On the way there, I'm asking him questions and keeping him busy. And he's explaining that he thinks it's his carburetor and that he turned on his lights to be safe. And I'm thinking, the story is not making sense. It's not making sense. When were you driving that you needed to have your lights on? It's 12 o'clock in the afternoon right now. when were you driving and needed your lights on that it would have killed your car? And if it killed your car, that's a battery issue, not a carburetor issue. You're asking me to jump start your car, which is a battery issue. If your carburetor or your starter is out, a jump isn't going to help. So you see, it was a 2.5 block thing, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. So I drive past, and I told him, as we got in the car, and I'm telling him to get in the back, and I said, I have a jumper kit. As we're driving up to the car, he's like, okay, well, you can just pull up, where, wherever your battery is, and I'm thinking, there's no fucking way that I'm getting near your vehicle. So I parked 5 spaces down from where he was parked. And I jump out and I pull the thing out and I hand it to him. So he can walk the 5 spaces back to his car and jump the car. And he jumps the car, and I'm even watching and making sure that he is actually hooking up the cables. It was dead. The car was dead. He did legitimately jump it. He gives it back to me and I put it in my trunk. Okay? And the whole time I'm thinking, this is how women get raped. This is how women get kidnapped. Nevertheless, I do know him, and I know that all those people witnessed. And I know that those people know who he is. On the other hand, the whole scenario, the way that he thought it was, that I'm a stranger, this is my first time at the church. As far as he was concerned, that is an extremely dangerous situation for a woman to be in. How dare he ask a woman to do that? Anyway, you can hear, I am blaming him, but I am taking responsibility. I needed a better boundary. And I needed to, once I had my initial statement of, can someone else jump your car? Well, it's convenient for you. I need to get to this place where I say, I don't feel comfortable driving you to your vehicle. I needed to say that. It would have been appropriate for me to say that. It might not have been the Christian thing to do that my ex-husband would have treated me like, but it would have been appropriate in the world that we are in today for me to say, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable driving you to your car. So, in essence, I am working this out and then giving myself permission to try to make it to that next boundary, right? Because we know that when we're doing a boundary, somebody who's really pushing your boundaries is going to double check. And when he double checked, I gave in. I got to work on it. So now I'm past ashamed, and I'm just going to say I'm disappointed in myself. And I'm not exactly sure how to make sure that I do the right thing the next time. I have worked on a whole bunch of boundaries, and as you're working on boundaries, you do improve each time. So at the very least, for me, getting to talk about it makes it stick in my mind so that the next time something happens, I'll remember how I had to confess to all of my subscribers that I didn't have boundaries. So there, I can have some what's the word I'm looking for? Accountability. The next time something like that happens, I'm going to be like, what would my subscribers think? Okay. Thank you for helping me with that, even just for me to share. Now, when I was just sitting down and thinking about posting this as a video, I did think, hey, you know what? I want to hear from other people. If you're welcome, if you feel comfortable actually posting in the comments, I am actually very curious about those of you who do go to church, or if there is some other venue, maybe school board, parent-teacher associations, I'm trying to think of, or Rotary, some type of large group gatherings that are community oriented, how you or your organization dealt with boundaries against people who are there being creepers. I can't explain it any different than that, but I know, we all know, I mean, churches, right? Everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome, including predators. There are predators everywhere. So there are predators at your church, predators that are trying to volunteer at schools, you know, predators who are at your Rotary meeting, who are just creepazoids, you know. So I'm very curious if anyone has had positive experiences of an organization having a boundary against suspicious people, because this is the key. I know this guy. Obviously, my church has tolerated him for the 10 or so years that I've been gone. And he's still going. He's still there, being a weirdo, being a creeper. So, you know, I don't know. And because I can say this, I've been at organizations such as schools where the boundaries weren't there. The boundaries weren't there, so I had to leave. You know, so I don't have many positive experiences, because we're not talking about someone who's been convicted of something. We're talking about someone who just makes people feel uncomfortable. And there's a delicate balance, especially at a church. You know, you don't want to, just because someone's not like you, you don't want to disregard them from your church. That's not how God works, just because he's not like you. Okay? But that was inappropriate. I can tell you this. I do remember my pastor 12, maybe close to 20 years ago. I don't want to give all the details of it, but this person at church, really, like 20 years ago, it was in my early 20s. This woman came up to me. She was offended by something I had done. I won't say what it is, but it was not offensive. But she was offended and came up to me in the church foyer, like really angry, so that other people could hear. Just came right at me and told me basically I was going to hell, that I was possessed of the devil, something, you know. And I just got away from her. And then I talked to the pastor later. And I said, this is what I did. And I quoted my scripture about it. And then said, this is what she said to me. The pastor called her at home and tried talking to her and tried explaining to her, and she never came back to church. And the pastor was okay with that. The pastor didn't attack her. He did try to talk to her, but she was that offended, despite what the Bible said, and never returned to church. And to me, that was a good boundary. It was a good boundary. I mean, let's go to the law. And the Bible is our law in this building, in this gathering. And this is what the Bible says. And I was completely well within the boundaries of our agreed upon law. And she didn't like that. And so she didn't come back. That's okay to me. In this scenario that happened today, where's our law book? He didn't break a law. But it was socially awkward. And he shouldn't be doing that. He shouldn't. I don't have a rule book about it, but certainly this man, who has been attending the church for over 20 years himself, should know that he should not be asking guests or women by themselves to drive him to a secluded location. Okay? So I will talk with my pastor about that. But prior to doing this video, I did text message one of the elders. I don't know if you know how church strata works, but you have the pastor and then you have elders and deaconesses. Anyway, so I'm quite good friends with most of the elders. So I did text the elder who attends my regular church and said, hey, so-and-so from our church is over at this church, and this is what just happened. I hope he's not doing that kind of stuff over there. So please keep the women safe. And I know she'll take whatever I say seriously. And possibly even talk to the pastor for me. I'll find out. Anywho. I hope that doesn't come across like I'm a tattletale. But I'm going with my gut. The guy is a creeper. And if I was standing at church, if the same scenario had happened and we were both at my regular church and I saw a guest come in, a single woman, and I saw him approach that single woman, I would have gone up to him. That's weird, huh? How the scenario would have been different. I would have gone up to him and said, hey, so-and-so, and I would have said, Mr. Male, Elder so-and-so can give you a jump. That's fascinating. Why would it be different? Alrighty. We are on a continuum of returning to health. On a continuum. It's okay. It's okay. I have to remind myself. What do they say? You know, if I was perfect, you know, we're not going to be perfect here. It's an imperfect world. It's okay that we're not perfect. So thank you for listening, because like I said, it is part of my coping strategy. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you if you do have any comments about boundaries or advice, or if I triggered you on something, you're totally welcome to vent. The cuss words that you would have said, I don't know. I'm grateful for an opportunity to share and get it out of my system, and also for me, when I let out what it is that's bothering me, there is that release, and then I'm open to forgiving myself, making a new strategy, picking myself up again, okay, and moving forward. And so that reminds me of another woman in my support group who recently vented a whole bunch of stuff out and had been feeling like she wanted to leave the group. And I acknowledged, okay, sometimes it gets overwhelming, but the key is to be able to share. And I don't know how it works or why it works, but when we share, there seems to be a release and then in the opportunity for growth and healing. So what was I going to say about that? And I think that's why personally for me, like I'm saying, that I don't have this problem with shame and guilt with God, is I think because I do share all the time. In fact, what's more difficult to me is sharing with you, a stranger. However, now that I've had the channel and been validated about the things that I struggle with, I can see that taking my pain and my struggle and validating someone else who's experienced it takes whatever that negative, icky feeling was, and I go, okay, cool. I'm going to do this to it, and then it's going to become something beautiful, right? From trash to treasure, because what was in there when I left that dude was trash, and I'm hoping that it turns into treasure. I'm validating you. If you have trouble with boundaries, I've been there, and looks like I'm still working on it, honeys. All right, thank you so much again for listening, and if you do want to talk to someone about anything like that, a boundary issue with a perfect stranger that triggered some of your abuse, or the abuse you've been through, or as I said, it's the first time watching one of my videos, and you want to talk to somebody about an abusive relationship or narcissistic relationship, remember to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is 1-800-799-SAFE, 1-800-799-7233. All right. Thank you again for listening. Much love.